Hello, Dr. Carol Burgess Sweeney, Trinity College. Forgive them, forgive me. Could be polite. In other words, I would rather deal with things privately. But there is an aside syndrome wherein how former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, he's involved with a bunch of names on off Trinity College, leading up to the World Trade Center attack and leading up to the a 2006 district court case where they have roles with relevant predicate acts, stacking allusions into databases with names also that did that on other campuses I went to, and as collusions with other names facilitated for themselves. But then also simultaneously the exceptions made because things sustained and people aren't going to go into the details of others they don't even know. And if they said they know them, everyone's lying about because they're speaking, being forced to use other people's names and hear things through others because people are recorded consciously through time, bringing things before interbranch locations, where how they're incapable of using time treatments properly and on time because there have been collusions. What is actually recorded are means to discern their identities of uses. There are people I don't even know. I could like almost smell them because of the like in other words, all kinds of things are simultaneously revealed. Where and how they've been switching and forging names for over a decade in Connecticut interbranch, the same ones that were interbranch and intercities through time as the ones that were on off the World Trade Center attack location and on off the Ninth Circuit Court right next to it and the spots next to it leading up to the Trade Center in that attack. And since they were also the ones insidiously doing that. Weathersfield police confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. Spada families are involved with various natures of federal evidences crimes with them with this. Weathersfield Police Chief Cintron has roles with people with the Bravo Network and with CNN involved with on off the state judicial branch offices, also with many on off Central Connecticut State University that have been used in other ages and natures of campuses criminally foreign influence. There is an Eric Oliveri who used my a teacher I had and his roles in an intimate relationship with a girl reportedly in the campus, which in their conversations and uses of my name behind my back, including to my family, pretending to know me, fake natures of relationships to me, per their roles on off the state judicial branch offices and with locations next to it, with relevant evidence, federal evidences, crimes, and posturings, and pretending to record things with the names involved with the World Trade Center attack and with the context and then with the sequence shifts in the names right next to it with all kinds of insidious ways. See, people have where the locations have been used criminally for and influenced. God bless everyone. No one no one should be hurt. Another thing I know is tied to the people with the World Trade Center attack. See, there's a whole bunch of countries that are shared individually grouped and together, tactical area from how we are individually grouped and together, down to those same people that are the only minority that are allowed to be. And then there's going to be good and bad array, and that's applied too, effectively. This is discernible where we have this hyperscope with the black pupils and the whites of eyes. And the significance of that denied by any fact treatment nature, because there are revelations by this that are hyperscience capable of reading the law better than lawyers, as we needed to do, as our founders communicated to us. What our founders communicated to us, if you're honest with yourself and with others, our founders communicated to us there was a breaching method on top of every single person. Everyone was a fact treatment nature slave, tortured, and forced to roles worse if they didn't tell anyone else for not having sense and sensibilities. As that tactical / hyper tactical pseudo-sophistication as the peak sophistication down to non-sophistication, juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and increasingly other distinct identities of criminal insidiousness natures, like wrongdoers and criminal enterprises themselves. The breaching method didn't and doesn't need to even know their names to have control over them simultaneously with the branches of government as criminal insidiousness nature. And it knew this. So it employs every identity at those identity ground locations, knowing how all the identities of your body share a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. When they are positive unto themselves, they are positive unto yourself. And where we have treatments of positive and negative, had someone spoken for the law and or for the nature of the law, let alone for the identity of the law properly, those are three simultaneously distinct things that come also with the value of sequence truth that became what really came before everything. Again, and that pseudo practicality is in the way of many pray. And so here's a contest for the branches of government individually grouped in together to make trial tribes. And like because the Native American assigned nature revealed Native Americans as human. There is most probable and demonstrable that nature revealed all human past education before it became criminally foreign influenced. So it was self-valuing how it could be led by the distinction between what is true, but it is not true always, not denying the slightest sequence, the slightest detail, not valuing the order of the finite. So they're denied its value, therefore the small detail. Not valuing that being able to be discerned by knowing what is actually being or having been recorded. One thing that is true always, criminally foreign influence database relationships were forced self-value by the syntax nature of people A through Z as the law directed it to be, not as it was natural. And they directed what feels good and what feels bad to inversion natures of themselves. Inverted natures of themselves. Where and how, for example, the suburbs were designed before the founders of modern countries' parents were even born. The breaching method was already sustained and perfected. So sick to measure and maintain what had to come out of it, then locked in further and punished and hurt, killed and stuff like that into the next phase of it. The whole time, no one was watching what was staying. Constantly, everyone was blaming on other things, others or selves, what the breaching method was, and where and how it was the solution they were looking for, with their words and needs to respond to things in context where they were alone, where they're grouped and together. In context where we are alone, there is one identity of relationship to itself that is an only increasing the identity of volume, but it's only a portion of the identity of volume, of the identity of the hypersimultaneous. This English is demonstrably revealed to teach about. God is a God variable. There's a difference between saying God is everything and then and you know and the name of it. It's all right if you say, "Oh, well, I believe this religion. This is the name of everything." That's different than saying God is that. And pantheism is proof. It is more probable. It is more practical and is demonstrable that pantheism had been about the identity of the hypersimultaneous and how the study of it reveals it is an identity of volume, only increasing its value because it is by what is increasing, it is by and as where and how each is only increasingly valued as one identity of value progression that all parts of space/existence are, that makes more of itself through temporary nature. The identity of forever nature, that is one of the things, the identity of the hypersimultaneous defined and revealed this way scientifically. The reason we call this pantheism is the same reason, only the individual through contemplation. And that's constantly. You know, not while being a group, not while being with people, only individuals through contemplation could we properly care for the value of, for questions regarding value treatments and identity treatments and time treatments, fact, nature, quality, sequence, value, quality. Only as individuals, we cannot defend the finite. This breaching method knew that a leader, no matter how powerful they could get, they would only be able to be over locations, areas, and states as styles syntactically manifest, as reliant upon criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, negative treatments, identity treatments simultaneously. Yeah. And blaming the causes of it on other things other than themselves. And specifically, for example, motivations. The breaching method recorded, effectively measured and maintained that and how it needed to keep blamed on other things, others ourselves. What nature would continue to demonstrate as an answer /S regarding all kinds of questions individually grouped in together, inherent, active, and progressive, that are our obligation to understand, not just as Americans. This is a sign, and thank God there's this one common breaching method simultaneously non-sickly, non-distinctly against each modern country's name. Effective, complete remote possession of all uses of each modern country's name. Effectively, the possession / hyperpossession of a semi-ancient criminal enterprise. There are an array of things that have only been allowed to be heard, and motivations that appear to be the only ones there. You know, regarding what kept and keeps such so sacred, so fake. You still have people that will sacrifice their lives for their country. You don't have one person who will allow someone else to use the significance of how everyone, since we were kids, we have been using, knowing that the course of black pupils and whites of eyes is abridged, and other people are pretending other. It's as we didn't. This is why we have to be shown. We have to be learning early these phrases like criminal insidiousness, and how we have to learn to discern natures of its standing, like criminal insidiousness, natures of charities, where we wouldn't have and shouldn't have needs for them at all. For example, the breaching method, don't forget, employed a whole bunch of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures while it was sustaining itself as a breaching method, using databases, using versions of the republic for which we stand, left abridged, and by our real founders who had to counter extort the other founders to us directed to get it unabridged and to use, teaching how Native Americans, if they didn't stay fighting against how the Constitution is unabridged, because the Constitution unabridged is hyper native pure. Yeah! Vaccines, raging things. Oh, my precious souls. Lord, I teach you things. So that Native American identity was measured and maintained by a breaching method, not allowed to be defended. And exceptions were self-valued by the breaching method too, as means to sense and utilize, by hurt, criminal insidiousness, nature of help, those counters to its method, where and how effectively it already employed, better than effectively, increasingly effectively, everyone blaming other things, others, or selves for itself, the breaching method. We're going to call it a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise because it involves things that are sicker than war crimes, which involved consciously roles with the propagation of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the exploitation of natures of witch trial courts. And, certain type of victim / hyper victim, predator with people A through Z, kept needing with strangers to hide the same sequence, finite shifts, finite active progressive lives, criminal insidiousness, natures of positive treatments, negative treatments, uses, passions, uses of other people's names. So the news media, for example, of every modern country, they are manifest, having come through campuses where also they assign the phenomenon, like where and how we have peers, but it's not the definition of peers, where the law is spoken about by the experts that tell us a jury of peers was and has and had values that are true, but also that it doesn't have, and cannot have yet, because the interbranch do not have yet possession of their identity. They still have roles, needs, and natures, pretending that's personal. Thinking it's personal, also with delusions relevant, because they are tactically having been propagated. And that was as left out from what our founders taught us, communicated for us to communicate. So we have to get to how to understand this. We have to understand that our founders communicated for us to communicate about how they had to counter extort the other founders, and they communicated to us that why they had to counter extort the other founders, and they communicated to us that we had to address why and how people got away, criminally foreign influence, little tricks, and pretending that they don't see evidences or that they see evidences while pretending not to be able to fathom where and how those processes were in the furtherance of all those uses of logic that denies defense of itself and the needed credibility to logic that does not leave out finite details, the order of the finite, that which is delicate youth. See the interbranch as an example. For example, where they are a certain nature of victim slash hyper victim that does not know how to react, and or that right doesn't react, and or that values the exceptions, the exception nature. And it's all that simultaneously because all kinds of things are relative simultaneously. And so, for example, everyone simultaneously values that and how a theory of relativity is having been purported to have value. And what if people read it, what or not is purported to have value and significance where it does not have significance. They are preventing people short words at locations sickly distinctly from at interbranch locations as collusions with uses of names in contexts where we have peers that have nothing to do with what it means in a jury of your peers. But this is also having been against everyone. And it is also having been a part of that which is sustained. And where and how relevant is that breaching method being and having been part of why everything has been sustained. Even while no one wanted that. Not one person wants to be differentially criminally influenced, let alone increasingly. But this remained the complete identity, the complete possession / hyperpossession of all voicings of all identity ground locations, areas, and states, and space means / needs and nature out of nowhere. Value here or force from here, lethal IDs, and so to be consumed by consciousness that is negative value nature or that is positive value nature somewhere else, where it can keep making more and more of the way it is true always, and not denying the slightest exception, not valuing the slightest exception to deny that nature of care for anything individually grouped together, let alone the elements of American history and the relativity of the sciences shared. And so when the subject treatment of slavery comes up, there is a volume science / hypervolume science here. You must prepare. So short words are not allowed unless they are made to leave out the identity of the finite, of finite details, in the order of the finite. And no one fathoms, no one realizes where and how this is manifest this way. Everyone just ignore, okay, I didn't cause the breaching method. These are the breaching laws against us. So one of the contests, I'll design it to donate You guys you fund it and you put it there so everyone knows that it's real. And you guys will couple with Native Americans. First of all, not one Native American should be homeless. And we need to do something to where and how employed by a breaching method our immigrant populations. Our uses of identities individually grouped and together. Certain type of victims that don't know how to respond, where and how this is tactical terror from how we're hyper simultaneously we are actually individually grouped and together, down to the same exact individuals. Anything you could make up individually grouped and together has three distinct identities of sequence/simultaneous natures of possession, invisible but still discernible, attached to it. And they come also with the hyper invisible but still discernible value of truth that really came, that was really true before the extent we know and or could reach through the course of revelation as its own, as each, not through the hyper breaching method breach. So one must teach. So where people speak and are forced to speak through others, increasingly they cannot afford to have discerned what is actually being and having been hyper communicated, not towards emotions. So they increasingly need to pretend that other people are speaking for emotional reasons. So they increasingly have to simultaneously make additional and even preemptive emotional affronts on people of each age of fact, human nature. These are experts on types of things, supposed to be defenses of those types of things as as roles with collusions, the furtherance of impositions that are unfathomable, unacceptable. We all agree we don't want them. All exceptions and exception nature are a demonstration of the same thing. We have people offensively coming involved with our conversations with others. One of the ways they got and get away with it is where and how those other identity ground locations, identities work. All the different distinct plural identities of your body have a semi-nature relationship to your complete identities, sequence/simultaneous nature, where you are a simultaneous nature. You are the body of the species too, so you are simultaneously a sequence nature. And where you can't be either of that and be what we are, you are simultaneously too grouped. And where that can't be that, but it has to be anyway, it is simultaneously species body. We can only control the species body's might/power one way. Any prayer, vaccines. Prayer was used by Hampton. So in other words, I forgot what Spock speaking with judges too in courts and into branch. So in other words, we're gonna fight each other. Real evolution science only feels like games, or else we sense completely the opposite of what is employed here, being and having been employed here. How long are people going to pretend that they're for the small people, while as the big people involved with the identity theft, fraud, slander method against everyone, as is actually recorded and everyone wants demonstrated it. They're playing games with these things. We have to. There are only three branches of government, and the exception nature, how they exploit that, make it more complicated, only makes it easier to discern where and how they've been used remotely where how they're a certain type of victim slash hyper victim, distinctly from ourselves. Relevant, and we're relative slash hyper relative is the breaching method. That which is increasingly an answer slash S for where slavery is a subject, but increasingly it has not been present there, because increasingly, and where it has increasingly not been present there, roles, needs, and natures, as blaming other things, others for that, increasingly simultaneously self-valuing that having been. And our founders have left us, what they actually communicated was for us to understand how they had to counter-extort the other founders, and how themselves and the other founders were rightfully scared. And they were simultaneously rightfully abandoned. That's it. This is the only grouping with nature of unity we could get as an independence. That's what we come with. Knave. The breaching method only allowed that possible. Jim Crow laws are hyper evidential proofs of this. Shock and awe, use their phrase, but I'm using my own way. Shock and awe. And because they used it as also hyper evidential. So this made people need to react to things like criminal insidiousness natures, of positive treatments and negative treatments, and time treatments and names uses of people, where and how it is increasingly being forced relevant at formal locations that are increasingly criminally foreign influenced. Worse than psychopaths, overtly slash insidiously reported that way. Collusion's also that way, with all private tied to them. Kept effectively with the worst patients and criminals, and even innocent people, forced to all hide the same lies together. That's how long it's been sick. You don't leave out. So we're phrases like criminal insidiousness. I mean, we're like phrases like of Jane Austen, Sense and Sensibilities. We need to, as an English teacher or professor, you need to be able to explain unaccosted. You cannot, with your words not being changed, with whole other natures of organized crime, not demonstrated roles and things like that demonstrated to you. You know, all kinds of things are instances that have nothing to do with any one of the locations that they're being forced not to know how to respond with. There are exceptions where and how juxtaposed with everyone hearing what they hear about other people's names and when they hear it. These are employments that are manifest where and how a breaching method took it tactically denature all identity ground locations and sustain that against Native Americans. It discerned this as the same identity theft slash fraud slash slanders method that it was furthering it against the Native Americans through. That it furthered it on them first. This is a semi-ancient identity of negative value nature progression, acts and natures, engineered effectively to be blamed on other things, others or selves, the causes of it, the cause slash S of it, the significance of that, the value of that, the value of understanding the nature of that, which is the value of understanding the nature, as value slash value as nature, more so than understanding what criminal insidiousness is about. But you have to learn about criminal insidiousness, just like you have to learn about slavery. I mean, it goes with it. You have to learn it right away because you understand it right away. Right away, no matter who you are, especially if you're not Native American or if you are Native American, you know that simply distinctly they were prevented rights then from wherever your lineage was. If you weren't Native American, but also sickly non-distinctly. In the same way, you know all the other groupings they made. Who's they? The breaching method. That's one thing colonization's names were A through Z. See, this is how we simplify. This is how we solve. With algebraic consciousness slash consciousness algebraic. This is more probably how it sounded when they spoke to teach about English and teach English as the ancients before the campuses became criminally foreign influenced in some ancient times. Specifically to maintain self-valued roles with that through defenses too. Specifically to maintain exploitations of that not discerned and sustained. And roles with where and how it knew nature would continually demonstrate that. And where and how that's what it did. It had set up a method effectively to get other strangers, keep themselves increasingly better than perfectly, able to keep everybody's self-valued roles, needs, and natures as criminal insidiousness natures, blaming other things, others, or ourselves for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and or they attach that individual to fake words, changed words, fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, fake pretending they're honest when they pretend to perceive how and why others are the way they are in a particular video and or in a particular picture. The FBI and the CIA and the intelligence community, military communities, their houses, their families, people next to them, involve criminally foreign influence, pretending passions and emotions with people from other countries, in the furtherance of people as with people that were men and women that are now men and women, but were involved with other men and women that are still alive, some not, that have been involved with these games, where how there's a recorded singular use of plural uses of a whole bunch of methods of stacking little tricks, allusions into databases, and exploiting that out of their location. And where and how relevant is where and how the breaching method measured and maintained what our founders communicated to us, because it was needed to defend, to liberate, to defend the Constitution unabridged, and to get through the phase that we are in, where it's still abridged and that's still screened, was it simultaneously incapable of defending its logic, and where and how it painted itself that way, and of affording the answer /S, syntactically actually capable of being, so instantly we could put hyperjournalism down. And we'll make it a virtual owner of it. But yeah, we need to have you guys, and we make you guys have the other half owned by a hypernative tribe, and we can get enough people to, we get enough people to agree. They get, write an executive order. They have, they're not going to be able to be sued and things like that. We can make a circuit. We can make temporary locations that are better than, has to be better than this with suburban that was designed with slavery north and south colonies before our founders were born. That unfathomable aspect, quality, in nature to that which we know as modern cities. That was consciously, we recorded consciously by a breaching method /S, only allowed to be. Or worse was going to be. Two, at least thank God they have those big, big, strong bricks to hold that stuff up. That's worse than torture. Clear as day. Evidence, hyper evidential. People stacking and what they call poverty. Oh, that's just poverty. So what's that mean? The chorus of black people's white eyes a bridge, and people are saying it's poverty. It means it's worse than that. They're understating things. And simultaneously, things are overstated. And that's worse because, too, not for the reasons of thought, because of the little subtle things are relevant to where and to how each identity, each location is kept motivated to self-value, the hurt of anyone and themselves, and everyone around them, and to simultaneously pretend other. Which note that's what that is when you deny the significance of this, because this is a means. This is better than a hyperscope, a telescope, and Doppler all at the same time. Prepare your mind. Staying on the revelations that come from understanding where and how a breaching method recorded consciously set those crazy laws up with the black and white narratives in natures. Consciously to exploit where and how nature already had shown the ancients. Nature communicates to us that the answer is the course of black pupils, whites of eyes. And the different color eyes are about exceptions in exception nature and about how it uses it differently than anybody else. I never had this thing on the whole time. It's too long. Too long, my video. Your Honor. Oh, I forgot. No, we'll go real fast. Mean stack. All kinds of things. Vaccines. We'll put pantheism, the science. The only reason it's an ism, we'll teach the only ism. The only reason it's an ism is because only when we are contemplating deeply, not leaving out the slightest exception, not valuing all that, and using the simultaneous, contemplating what do we really know is true always, not denying the sign of the slave's detail. And so, for example, that's one of the reasons this better than microscope, better than telescope, having black pupils, whites of eyes. And exception is exception nature. And other having been so passionately pretended legitimate where colored words like black and white are used in every context. Even saying even words down to color, speaking about the science of colors. Well, it's the science because that's all you can see. This one reflects the light, and this one. This is answering our questions while it is giving them simultaneously. Everything is about the simultaneous. Everything that appears not to be about the simultaneous is simultaneously about the relativity of a special difference, that the identity that all things are at once as its identity has to itself. And even though we can't be to know that, we are an extent of everything at once. And it's complete hyper-possession of everything at once, as all parts of space/existence. And its identity of relationship to itself. And the only increasing value of that is also inseparable from each identity of consciousness. It wants and needs us to discern this. There are proofs that it is also showing us regarding space, for example. It is more probable that we are 1/3/5 identities of sequence/simultaneous nature, where we are the phenomenon of temporary identities of a body that is simultaneously also a semi-nature relationship to its complete identity, which is bigger than its body and is more finite than its body, well, as its body, where and how we are the extent of its body that we discern from, well, as boxing. I teach us things, boo-boo. Prepare. It's time. Okay. Be grow. I teach you law. People pretend they can't take sensibilities and things like that. Short words. You have to get them on. See, they were trying to push people to a side conversations because they painted themselves attaching little kids and their family members through time with the interbranch overt criminal enterprises and private ones involved with criminally foreign influence uses of corners of streets, as names also involved with criminally foreign influence uses of buildings, corners, for little, as roles with the little identity theft, fraud, slander method tricks. Also relevant where and how hyper-evidentially recorded is that and how non-distinctly against every single person. That's one of the things the breaching method singular / plural stay unaddressed. Our founders told us, communicated for us to address the breaching method that had everyone righteously fearing not to use syntax nature, positive and negative treatments. Both positive criminal treatments, criminally foreign influence as dictated. Not because it was dictated, because it was criminally foreign influence dictation. It was tactically delusions wrought dictation. It was uses of names that can't be defended and afford simultaneously that which is where and how actually where it is functional, where our names are simultaneously also the voicings of the ground's name /s. I tell it best. And where we can only be those voicings through and for ourselves as the species body. Knave. Only allowed since some ancient times. Prepare our minds. who disbelieves. Get them to one name in sequence, please. I beg the branches to get their part off. It is with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, not relative to what UConn and Trinity College has with the Los Salidos and the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants, Darius Skarbowski, on off Fox Connecticut News, with a whole bunch of names like two Mendez brothers, on off Weathersfield Police Department, off the New Britain Superior Court involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. There are proofs. I shook his hand. I had no conversation with him outside of the New Britain Superior Court before I caught he had roles with the principal child defender, and there were more then and now. And his brother's also involved with confessions tied to relevant falsified police reports. Since I was a kid, too, these are powerful people involved with identity thefts, fraud, slander. Everyone else, oh, these are powerful people, whatever. Get them on one name and sequence on paper. Of course, they're powerful people. Our founders left us to demonstrate boxings. One identity of power / might is the only one that can be simultaneously the order of the finite. We power kite. We then find power might. So we need to get the name switching and forging, confess whatever, because this is also, if they want to pretend their passions and emotions all along that road en route to the Central Connecticut State University in New Britain from Weathersfield, recorded, there's a bunch of ways to demonstrate on-off elections locations, even conscious criminally foreign influence, uses of the political parties and their needs and natures and styles of logic individually grouped and together, criminally foreign influence, uses of self-value, uses of exception nature, also having coming through these campuses, can't defend their logic and us at the same time. This breaching method measured and maintained other motivations, nature, needs, interests from other locations. Needed to make sure no one at any location for other interests doesn't have a quality of factual nature at that location. Necessary to be able to teach, let alone to defend. What those simultaneously criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, negative treatments, and identity treatments and value treatments are about. It's why positive and negative are value to math. It's why value is value to math. It's why the XY coordinate system and one's built off of it, whatever they could invent. It's why they are valued the way they are. Identity course, which is its own. Vaccines. I teach you things. Not valid, not truth, not used for lies. Not used to screen lies. Applied this way, that way, sideways. Why? It's tribes. So people involved with the buildings and the names with the buildings at downtown Hartford next to the state capitol. They have roles planting, filming fake things, fake ties, fake natures of ties between people, where the interbranch and the foreign are kept needing to do that to hide where and how they've been using everybody remotely relative to what I caught them doing between campuses of each age and nature. This is a vertical and horizontal database organized crime method worse than war crimes. But it's with the slavery was coupled with extortion acts and methods that were simultaneously being communicated and simultaneously telling everyone else the same thing about it. It wasn't just that breaking method against the slaves. It was against everyone. And that's what you hear when you hear people say using words like success, certain type of victim / hyper victim. Otherwise, they attach that person to fake words, change words, and worse, little tricks where that are effectively self-value rolls with them at all locations, every state, everywhere the species has been. Self-value rolls with illusions stacked in databases against yourself, against others. So it's not by accident. No one ever broke down how there are so many distinct natures of wealth. How many there are distinct identity of the ground, identity of relation to itself, differences, where and how they use words like wealth or freedom. And the suburbs were designed to have to lead to nature to cause negative value nature progressions to simultaneously make self-value only means to cause positive value natures progressions as collusion /s with a whole bunch of natures of criminal and city natures of positive means to cause positive value nature progressions acts and natures. Humanities is a negative value nature progression, tactical as systems tactical ulterior from how we are the system. And it's demonstrating. Too long our one little species has been in these systems. Other black peoples, who has not wanted anger used where truths are not used for lies, not value having been used for lies, and others or whatever like that. Oh, if you don't know about it, we'll know about it. We want to fight and get angry because there is more. There are revelations. Stay on this. The course of black pupils, native, whites of eyes is abridged and hypernated pure. And if we debate that, if we debate who could fight to get us, who could defend syntactically, we have to get the Native Americans' education remembered. To do that, we have to enable them to have an identity that grounds identity of relationship to itself. That is as its system using water, not just its way, but conjunctive / hyperconjunctive to where and how it wants us and needs us to pray. Not to ask for gifts, to figure out how to put best its identity of the relationship to itself, which it is hyper additionally that same thing, but hyper additionally as an identity of relationship to the ground and its identity of relationship to itself. Therefore, the waters, the gases, space / existence method means come out of nowhere. Even with vertical and horizontal, they have that only chop nave value and nature allowed to be fathomed. We could take distressed areas, better than free, make perfect positive value nature progressions, action natures look better than the Garden of Eden. Or has it? One thing is hyper-metaphoric alone. Boxing. I teach you days below. So we make a circuit, and the Native Americans and us, we all fight to say, in other words, to make it as best as we could. A method to the locations. And we have different natures of locations with it. And it'll be just like a website, but This is part of a religion. Well, Papa has science. We're no faith. We're the debatable that can be used to get over on not debatable, as it has stayed in many prayed, where that is overcome. So pantheism is more probable, is more practical for the nature of what English was really revealed to be taught, how it was really revealed to be taught. In other words, I forgot what else is many prayed. Thank you.